Throughout the winter and spring, bass really key in on shad. And probably the best cold water, shad imitation bait is going to be a suspending jerkbait. These baits have the name, they say suspending on the package. If you go out and you see one that says floating, typically I'm not going to choose that bait for a cold water application. The key, this thing is neutrally buoyant. When you see a bait that says suspending on it, it's going to be neutrally buoyant, it's going to get down there, and it's going to suspend. So when I pause it, it's just going to hover there. It's not going to float, it's not going to sink, it's just going to sit there, and those slow, cold-moving bass are going to have a chance to swim up to it and grab it. So they're really, they're just an amazing trigger to a bass. You can rip it, make it erratic, and then pause it. And when it pauses, I've actually seen bass in clear water slowly swim up to that thing. You give it one more little twitch, and they just, whoom, and they grab it. So jerkbaits, suspending jerkbaits are incredible techniques if you're going to be fishing, water in the 40 up to the 55-degree range. I've caught some monster bass all across the country on these jerkbaits. The rod I like to use, since you're going to be ripping that rod with your wrist, a little bit shorter rod is good. So I'm going to normally go with like a 7-foot medium action. 7-foot medium action is going to be just about perfect. And with that way you can rip that bait down there. If you have a big long rod trying to rip it down to the bottom, or rip it down, it's a little bit difficult. So 7 foot's perfect. And then I like to have a medium action on my rod. Medium action rod is great, and in that that way when they grab onto this bait, a lot of the time when they're cold, they're just going to swat at it. So when you get a bass that's barely skin hooked by one of these treble hooks, which happens a lot when you're jerkbait fishing, you want to be so gentle with them. And I'm sure if you watch a lot of Bassmaster fishing on TV, you've seen guys lose some big bass on jerkbaits, and the key is having that soft rod so it doesn't happen very often. The reel I like is a 6:6 gear ratio reel. You don't need something that's super high speed, and you don't want something that's too slow. Kind of the mid-level gear ratio reel is going to be perfect. I'd say 6.2 to 6.6 gear ratio. And then I like to use light fluorocarbon line. Fluorocarbon is going to let that bait get down there, and since fluorocarbon is more dense than monofilament and it sinks, that's going to be the key. I can have a direct contact down under the water, and that jerkbait's going to get down to where it needs to be and trigger those fish into biting. So get yourself some 10-pound fluorocarbon, the right rod, the right reel, and a jerkbait will put some big bass in the boat in the winter and spring months. It is absolutely a tool that you got to have, and you got to have the right setup if you want it to work for you.